Well, thank you for coming today. And in case any of you don't know me, I'm Aaron. I work with Ivana. It's a pleasure to have you. So, John, we'll start off just by talking about your time at Engine and sort of like some of the clients you work with, especially those in the retail industry. And we'd love to hear a bit more about your experience.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, everyone, this morning. This feels quite strange being further down than everybody else. But I'm obviously not the expert in fashion, as you can tell. I guess my background is more in terms of digital marketing and social content. And during my time at Engine, we were very fortunate that we were kind of living through what I would call the sort of glory days of social media. So it was like the early days, and we acquired a business called Jam, which when we bought it was 20 people. Average age was about 22 years of age. You know, they were just like lots of young guys and girls just like doing social media. This is about 2010. And in the space of a year, and I was brought in as one of the grown-ups to help sort of manage the business. In the space of a year, we went from 20 people to about 80 people. And then a year later, we were about 150. So we saw this massive growth, and largely from working with brands, as mentioned, Samsung and Xbox, etc., etc. But we did work for fashion brands, in particular Next. So the retailer Next. And one of the things that we did, and I was thinking about this idea of campaigns that I'm quite proud of, and this is not one that I worked on, I'll just put the caveats, I didn't work on this myself, but I was there when we came up with it. We used to do, I don't know if they still do it now, but we launched the Next modelling competition. So this was the next face of Next. So this was a social media competition. It was launched largely on Facebook, and it was one of the things that we did was we said, if you think you're the next face of Next, then submit a photo, submit your details on Facebook, and you could become the next kind of in the catalogue and feature, etc., etc. Well, that proved to be wildly successful. And we ran it for about 3 years or so on the trot. But one of the things we were also doing for Next was doing some social media listening. And so we were actually monitoring the conversations that were taking place at the time. And one of the recurring conversations that we saw come up was that people were asking, this is great, you know, like a Next modelling competition, but wouldn't it be great if they did something for our kids? Because, I don't know about you, if anyone's got kids here, and I've got 3, everyone thinks their kids are the most attractive in the world. That's just a thing that happens. Everybody just assumes, everyone else just sees a wrinkly old person in small flesh. But to the parents, you think that kid is the most gorgeous. And so we picked up on this thing where like lots of people were saying, this is great, but it would be really nice if they did this for kids. And obviously Next had a kids modelling competition, a kids catalogue. So we went to Next and we said, people seem to be asking for a children's version of this. Mm-hmm. And so they went, great idea, and that's what was run. Now the fact that I found a bit extraordinary about that is when we ran it, the first year we ran the kids version of the Next modelling competition, 1 in 7 of every child under 3 in the UK was entered into that competition. Right? So 1 in 7 of every child under 3 in the UK was entered into that competition the first year we ran it. It was just to feature your kid as a Next model. That was it. It was just to get your kid to be the next face of Next. But you know, it was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And it was just the response was people just. And again, that wasn't an idea that we as an agency came up with. That was an idea that we spotted because we were listening to what people said. So I guess that's one of the things I took out in terms of one of the values of social, is that you have the world's biggest research group. You have the ability to see what people are asking for, to listen in, and that can give you an insight into something which can actually be hugely successful.
And how do you listen in, like with the mass of social media? How do you listen in as a small brand here? How can designers here today listen in and see what people are looking for and what they're talking about?
It's a good question. So, I mean, in the early days, you know, we were creating bespoke software for it, and you know, all this sort of stuff. But the truth is, there's a number, and there's free tools, and then there are tools that you can pay for, and tools that you have to pay a great deal for. So, the likes of Hootsuite, which allows you to listen and publish. There's like you get tools like Brandwatch, which are a little bit more expensive, but they do models based on usage again. and you can just as simply just use something like TweetDeck. I mean, the free tools, and ultimately you just set up, you're just tracking certain hashtags and conversations. So in just using a free tool like TweetDeck, you can literally just set up the kind of subject conversations. And what you can do in TweetDeck as well is set parameters. So you can say, I don't want every bit of conversation around a certain topic. I only want something that's had, say, 20 or 40 retweets. So it's a popular thing. So you can set certain parameters. You can set geolocations. You can say, I only want conversation taking place in the UK, not in Venezuela or somewhere else. That's irrelevant. So there's a whole bunch of things. Some of them free. Some of them you have to pay a small kind of subscription basis. But for small businesses, there's normally an entry level where you can get a pretty good deal. And those things allow you to monitor. Twitter's very easy. The advantage of using some of the tools is that they will allow you to monitor things like Instagram as well. And again, anything that has a hashtag is easy to track because you can track the hashtags. Facebook is a different challenge, and that's where, again, you get to the tools like BrandWatch, which will allow you sort of under the hood to actually to look at what people are talking about on Facebook. And Facebook also have their own analytics program. Again, if you're advertising on Facebook already, you can look at the analytics from your own sort of advertising.
That's really interesting. I know also I've seen a thing with dark posts on Facebook. Yep. You can do a dark post, and do you want us to explain a bit about that?
Yes. So the thing about Facebook. Again, in the glory days, the early days, Facebook used to be, before they got their algorithm going, Facebook used to be one of those things where you post and then people would see what you post, right? And obviously, because of the amount of brands that jumped onto Facebook and because of the amount of people, quite frankly, that jumped onto it, they had to come up with an algorithm that would enable you to kind of sort what's interesting versus, versus what perhaps is just spam or stuff you don't want to see. So for very good reasons, they implemented an algorithm. The downside from a brand perspective, or from a kind of, I guess, from any business perspective, is that it means that on average, less than 1% of people will see, if you are a brand, you have a brand page, less than 1% of people will see a post that you put out there organically, right? So i.e., if you do not pay Facebook to promote or boost that post, you're looking at, it's in the 0.7% roughly at the moment of people that will see that organically. So if you've got, you can do the math, you've got 10,000 followers and you post something and you're wondering why your engagement rates are pretty low, that's because only 1% of those people has actually seen the post. Now what Facebook do have is some credible advertising products, and that allows you, for example, if you don't want to spam the people that are following your content and are interested in your content, and also I should say, if you've got smaller pages, then your engagement rates will be higher because you've got a smaller group of people that you're broadcasting to. But if you don't want to spam them with all your content, you can dark post. And what dark posting is it allows you to do essentially send an advertising message, so it's an ad product, but only specifically to a targeted audience. No one else will see it, it won't appear on your page. So let's say, for example, you want to target 25-year-olds who are into Vogue and Grazia, and they happen to live in, I don't know, let's say the south of the country, right? So you can broaden it, you can make it as tight as you want, you can make that into a borough if you wanted to, you can make it as broad as a geographic location, but you can do some very highly targeted advertising. You can send them a message as a dark post, which means it will appear on their feed, but no one else's. No one else outside of that target category. So you have very little waste, which is good. Also means that you're not spamming your regular audience, but it is an ad product, so you have to pay. And so there are some advantages and disadvantages. Cool,
great. And over the time you've been, you mentioned Next campaign. Like you've been quite proud of it. Was there anything else, like was maybe a more recent campaign that you've been involved in that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah.
And some of the learnings that you brought out of it.
I mean, we did the FC UK campaign at Lost Boys.
Oh yeah.
And we did the Mind FC UK.
Mind FC UK.
Yeah, which looks like something else. And that campaign for us was something we were very proud of, and it was very simple premise, which was we were trying to get French Connection back. You know, French Connection had a really sort of bad boy image, sort of in the late sort of noughties, early 90s, late noughties, and it kind of lost its way a bit. And we wanted to do something that was kind of bringing back some of that I guess, that cheekiness. And we came up with this very simple campaign where you just looked at any object, and it was a normal sort of object. But when you zoomed in on it, it looked like a piece of someone's sexual anatomy, which sounds very silly, but it was, and to be fair, it was quite silly, but it actually worked. So you'd sort of have an image, you'd think it was a very rude image because it looked like someone's anatomy. Let's say, for example, it would look like, you'd look at a pink balloon, but very zoomed up, it might look like something else, as in, I'll leave that to your imagination. And basically, as you zoomed out, you began to see what it actually was. And then so the hashtag was MindFCUK, which again, the whole purpose of FCUK is that your brain reads the first letter and the last letter of any word, and the words in between, it just doesn't matter which order they're in, so people read it as, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, they read it as fuck. And so we ran that campaign. And again, so the reason why I was really proud of it is because it did incredibly well in social channels as a piece of content. It helped to re-establish, it was bang on brand, helped to re-establish FCUK again. They made t-shirts out of it, which is a great compliment because they actually started making the sort of Mind FCUK t-shirts, which is a great compliment. And the engagement rates were sky high. You know,
what is a sky high engagement rate?
Well, I mean, it's a really good question. I mean, an engagement rate, typically, you know, you're looking at about, you know, for most posts, it all depends on scale of audience. But for a large scale brand, if you're getting an engagement rate of 1%, you're doing well, right? If you're a smaller brand, you might be typically getting up to 10% engagement. All depends on the size and scale. If you're doing anything above 10%, then you're doing phenomenally well, and you should be really pleased with that. And engagement differs by platform as well. So Instagram still continues to this day to give brands the highest engagement rate. If you are not using Instagram, you are absolutely missing a trick.
Yeah.
Because Instagram, and now, as you know, they're sort of trying desperately to kill Snapchat.
Yeah.
So they're introducing far more features. I was looking at some research just earlier today. 55% of brands are using, or fashion brands are using Instagram stories versus 38% of them using Snapchat. Now again, it all depends on your audience and who you're targeting, but if you're not using Instagram, you're genuinely missing a trick.
Yeah.
It's a visual platform, gives the highest engagement rates, far higher than Twitter or Facebook. And you can still use the platform as a brand without having to pay and still get that in front of an audience. And as you can imagine, they're going to dial up the paid advertising opportunities, but at this moment in time, Instagram makes sense. As I say, the French Connection campaign worked in terms of, it worked incredibly well in social. It won a whole bunch of awards, which was nice. My one regret about that campaign is that originally the marketing director had seen it, loved it so much, that they were going to run it out of home, it was going to be in post, you know, they were going to literally use it as an above the line kind of get it out there and re-establish the brand. And unfortunately, which is ironic for a brand like French Connection UK, they thought it was too risky.
Really?
And so they stepped back from doing it, and so they kept it as a social content and digital only campaign, which was a real shame.
Do you think maybe sort of the risky, controversial campaigns might be overdone? Like recently you see Pepsi's campaign, and you see a lot of like risque campaigns. Do you think maybe it's a bit overdone now, or? Well,
Pepsi's campaign wasn't risky. It was just bad. It was just a bad campaign. It was just. It wasn't so much risky. It was actually quite risk averse, and it was just badly done. And it was. I don't know if you've seen that Saturday Night Live sketch about the behind the scenes of that Pepsi ad. I mean, they thought, it's a really good case in point. They thought, oh, we've got Kendall Jenner, and it's going to be really edgy, and we're going to do kind of like something that harks back to sort of Black Lives Matter. But it was just a really, really bad decision. The reason why agency people like myself are so happy about it is because it was done in-house by Pepsi's own creative department.
Really?
It wasn't done by an agency. So all of us agency people go, you see what happens? You see, you just do it yourself. You guys, you brands think you know what you're doing. It's not to say that we haven't made crap ads before, we have. But that was made by Pepsi's in-house department, and it was just bad. So I think the controversial thing is you can only push it so far. I mean, you think back in the day, you had the United Colours of Benetton, They were very controversial. They were one of the first ones out there doing that, very, really pushing the boat out. After a while, I mean, French Connection had this problem as well. You get fatigue, so you kind of go, where do we go now? How do we top that? How do we shock people more than this? And we've seen that in social media, brands trying to jump on, whether it's Halloween pranks or all kinds of, people are trying to take the next level up, trying to get a viral hit. And the spoiler alert is that there are very few genuine viral hits. Most of them are supported by paid media in the background. You may not see it, but they are. And if there's one message that I always give people about social, is it is not free. We typically talk about owned media, earned media, and earned media is typically social. So when they say earned media, you've got owned, earned, and paid. Owned is your own platform, what you can do on your own platform to communicate. Earned is social media, PR, etc. That's when you earn the attention, the eyeballs. It's not on your own platform, but you earn it. And paid is when you just straight up pay, display advertising, whatever. But that line between earned and paid is now blurred because most social platforms have wised up, and they're not just going to allow you to access an audience without paying for it. So you have to recognise that that it is, most of these platforms are pay to play, and it takes time.
I've noticed that there's a lot of internet gurus out there. There's a lot of people saying that the Facebook and Instagram are opportunities now, and anyone can reach this massive audience for free. And it's really not true. When we started See Fashion, we did a viral campaign. We had actually the winner was Georgina for the jacket you see here. In the space of 3 weeks, we had 5,600 people sign up and register their email and vote for someone to win. They were all real people, and it was friends referring friends to win jacket, to win the item, and to help their friends win. And we had this seed group of designers, 140 designers in total, submitted products. Out of the 140, 20 of them went through to the semi-final, and then from the semi-final it was a public vote, and it was crazy. Someone would get a friend to vote, and they were gonna, and we did what Facebook doesn't want you to do. We broke the algorithm, and we did do a lot of paid though. But the paid we did was paying influencers to talk about it. We're paying other people to talk about us and talk about the competition and to post things on our behalf. So when you came to See Fashion's page, it didn't look like we were doing paid. And we built a Facebook app. So the Facebook app was doing the data capture, and it was all embedded on our website as well. So although we didn't get much traffic to our website, it all stayed in Facebook, which Facebook loves. And it is possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think that. So I wrote a piece recently on LinkedIn about influencer marketing, because that's again something that's seen.
Talk about that for sure.
That's seen a huge amount of growth, and I'm sure most of you, if you're sort of fashion designers, it would be one of the ways in which people consider it. And again, I consider myself, I am that old that I was in the early days of influencer marketing, when you could literally go out, and I remember some of the stuff we did with Microsoft, and we brought a whole bunch of photographers in, and there were, photography, fashion, bloggers, all that sort of stuff, and you didn't have to pay them, right? All you had to do was just give them a good day out. This was we're going to do a photography class, and the best design may end up on the front page of Bing, because they always have an image on Bing. Bing is the other search engine, just in case. It's the not Google search engine, the one that nobody uses. But anyway, we were trying, and we figured, because you had, photography was always a big feature of Bing, so we did these influencer events. And back in the early days, you didn't even have to pay an influencer to show up, because for them it was they were young bloggers, and they were oh my God, Microsoft wants me to come out, and they're going to give us a day out, and we're going to do some stuff. Okay, those days are over, as we all know, and now you have influencer management agencies. You've got the top influencers, literally like celebrities. But I think the example, I don't know, did people hear about the Fire Festival? You heard about that? That was the recent sort of debacle over the Fire Festival. So for me, that represents.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, probably the lowest point in influencer marketing. It's the nadir of influencer marketing, at least I hope so. Which was so there was this festival supposed to be out in the Bahamas. They got all these influencers saying they're going to be there, right? You remember that one? You know, it was Ja Rule was behind it, and then they had, you know, Kylie Jenner and, you know, all these kind of like models. It's going to be incredible and come out, you know, you could pay up to 1,200 quid a ticket. You know, it was like really expensive, or, you know, people paid more than that for the flights and accommodation. And then when they got there, it was like, it was like these kind of they literally gave them these tents that they give, you know, the UN give refugees, like they were disaster relief tents. And it was unbelievable, which were all blowing away, and then they were giving people like sandwiches out of boxes, and so everybody's getting sued. And then they couldn't even get out of the airplane. You've got to see the video. They couldn't even get out of the airport because they locked the gates. And there was too many people trying to get off the island, so they were locking people in the airport. And then, you know, they were saying, "There's no," and they've got all these guys going, "We've got no food." You know, they're all Snapchatting and influence. Oh my god. So it was a total disaster. Now, what's interesting about that is that the influencers were real, right? So they genuinely did get some of the top influencers in the world to promote it. And most of them didn't, you know, you are supposed to, you know, according to FCC regulation, or in this country, the Advertising Standards Authority, you are supposed to, if you are paying an influencer or giving any form of compensation, which does not have to be cash, right? They are supposed to put on their promoted post that it is sponsored. They have to use a hashtag spon or sponsored or ad or some way of indicating so that the audience knows that, okay, they're promoting it, but they're receiving something in advance, which is just fair. It's just like any other form of advertising. That's just fair. But most of them did not do that. Most of them were just there going, hey, I can't wait to go to the Fire Festival, and doing all this promotion stuff, and didn't disclose the fact that they were either being paid or being offered VIP tickets and, you know, all the rest of it. So, hence, there is a real threat. Now that the lawsuits have all started, this is America after all, there's a real threat that some of the influencers may also be getting sued because of, you know, they essentially promoted this festival.
I read somewhere that they paid how many hundreds of thousands for one of the posts?
Yes. I mean, Kylie Jenner did post, right? As did, Hadid, you know, I'm not up with all the names, BB and GG.
So for designers and brands here, that maybe like don't have a massive following yet, but would like to try influencer marketing.
Yes.
Like, what would you say? Should you give free products? Should you pay people? How, you know?
Well, you're going to have
a ratio of how much that you should pay per 1,000, or, you know, considering they're only 1%.
Yeah, I mean, you know, influencer marketing is undeniably effective.
Yeah.
In terms of, particularly in certain category groups, it is undeniable. In terms of awareness, you can't deny that. You know, I think it's pretty undeniable that you're going to have to give away at least some product, because the best way and the best kind of marketing is actually a genuine review, as opposed to a sponsored post. A genuine review, giving somebody some product and asking them for their honest opinion, and allowing them to have their honest opinion. And again, you know, I've worked with some of the big names, Poppy Dinsey and stuff. She was hilarious, and she, you know, so she sort of talks about the fact that people send her stuff. You know, oh my God, they send me belts. Anyone would know. I don't wear belts, and they're asking me to review it, please. And, you know, and then they had the cheek to ask for it back, and it was like, you know, and I was like, well, fair enough. They do your research, right? Find out who the influencer is. You know, what are they into? Ask them for a genuine review, but recognise the fact that unless you have a personal connection or you're willing to pay, chances are, I mean, these guys are getting absolutely inundated these days with requests from PR companies and direct from brands. You know, trying to get them into all sorts of stuff. So, you know, work your angles, find out who knows who, you know, and then you're going to have to pull some favours. I'm sure you guys did when you were doing yours. You know, pull a few favours. Ask for genuine reviews as opposed to sort of promotion. Ask for genuine reviews. If it's going to be a negative review, try and find out first, of course. But ask for genuine reviews. And then, you know, as I say, it's all about experimentation. So it's all about, you're going to have to work out who your audience is, what they respond to, who are the right sort of people for you to engage with, and then, you know, still...
Also join halls, you know, work with other brands and do like a blog or haul.
Yeah.
We're starting to do this as well, where we're taking like products from different designers and sending them as a package and working out a deal where they'll review they'll review a certain number of the products they like best. There's no guarantee that everyone will get reviewed, but the products they generally like, then they review, and because they've got them, they can always use them afterwards and they'll appear in their photos. So teaming up with other brands is a really good way to save cost as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us about a campaign that didn't go so well? You mentioned one earlier, but is there like one big blooper, like one thing that just went terribly wrong?
I mean, there's loads of campaigns that don't work as well as you'd like, right?
Okay.
So sometimes you do a campaign and you think it's a great piece of work, and for one reason or another, it doesn't take off, or it doesn't, and that's always disappointing, right?
Yeah.
You can't get away from that. I guess the one that I always remember is the one that worked, but we had to pull it anyway. And we did, and this was a piece of work that we did for Samsung, where we sort of, if you're a geek and you're into unboxing, when you get a new product, there's videos that they call unboxing videos, and people will literally film themselves unboxing this product. Well, we came up with this idea of extreme unboxing. So we got influencers, and then we gave them a Samsung phone, and we put them in extreme conditions, and then got them to do an unboxing video while they were experiencing it. Again, this was done at Jam, and it was hilarious. And so we put them like on a roller coaster, and they're trying to unbox a Samsung product, and they're doing the product review as they're on a roller coaster. And we threw this guy off a plane, so he was on a parachute. He was doing an unboxing video while he's coming down. It was awesome. And the best one was when we sent a blogger up, and we stuck him in one of those stunt jets, and it was literally doing the loop-de-loop and doing all this sort of stuff. And he's literally doing this review, and he's like his face is going, and he's doing all this stuff, and he's doing this review, and he was like, and it was just so awesome. And then he was like, I think I'm and then he vomits. And he vomits over the camera. It was just so good. And anyway, unsurprisingly, that was the one that went viral. That was the one that went genuinely viral, right? And I was in the office the day, again, the planning team were working on it, and you could literally see YouTube just going crazy. It was just going nuts, because it's like mad. It's like this guy, and he's doing a review, and then he vomits at the end. Anyway, suffice it to say, Samsung UK were cool about it. They were the client. Samsung Global were less cool about it. We got grassed up actually by another subsidiary who saw the video, and then grassed us up to the global head office in Korea. And then the guys involved got literally frog marched into an office and told to delete all traces of that video, and literally delete it from your hard drives, delete it from everything, delete it from the internet. So it was a real shame, because it was a great piece of content, but it was off-brand. And seeing as I still work with Samsung at the moment, it's just worth saying, I totally understand that was the right decision. And all copies, of course, have been deleted.
Of course. We've actually got it on the screen to show you. Okay, so like SEO and pay-per-click, like content marketing, like where do you start as a small brand? Content marketing. We've mentioned Instagram, we've mentioned Facebook,
yeah.
But like, how do you sort of like bundle these together? Like, is there like any sort of like methodology for like pushing people around these different platforms that you recommend? Yeah,
I mean, you've got to look at it as an ecosystem. So that's the key point, is you've got to think about digital as an ecosystem, not as just one platform. So that will include your website, that will include your social channels, but that does include thinking about things like SEO, which is search engine optimization. I'm sure everybody knows that. Although I hilariously asked my children yesterday, what do you think search engine optimization was? I can't remember what they came up with, but it wasn't that. And also pay-per-click, which, let's face it, so they reinforce each other, right? So search engine optimization is largely just common sense. It's understanding that if you're writing a piece of content, you want the right keywords to appear and it to be tagged appropriately so that Google can find it, and other search engines like Bing. But so it's just really common sense. It's really about taking a look at your content, and most of the blogging platforms will do this for you. When you're writing a piece of content, they'll actually, you'll actually see on WordPress, for example.
Like blogging, like WordPress, Medium.com.
Exactly. And they will help you to think about the appropriate tags, and also you can get plugins that will show you how SEO friendly is this article. And ultimately, you want to be producing content because the more content you have that's seen as relevant, obviously ranks higher in Google, and therefore you're going to be more visible when people are searching for that piece of content. Pay-per-click is, again, for those, I'm sure most of us are familiar with the premise, but again, my advice would be to just trial. And so you just use, the great thing about pay-per-click is you can set how much you want to spend on which particular search terms do you want to be bidding against, and you can trial it. So you don't have to just, you don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds. You can literally just, start bidding. You can bid, so, you can say, I want to pay no more than £20 a day or a week. And as soon as I reach that, as soon as a number of people have clicked on that, then stop. And so you can just start to then evaluate and see what was the quality of those clicks that came through. The people that did click on whatever it was, what was the quality? What did that lead to? Yeah. So, you have to look at digital as an ecosystem. You have to start thinking about it in those terms, and it's not just about it is a little bit exhausting when you're trying to be a designer and you've got other things to do, but you've got to look at it in the round. You've got to look at it as not just one, but try and look at it as a spoke, as it were, with the various channels or different activities.
And one thing I've noticed, when I spoke to designers, like people that have tried this pay-per-click, like they generally, when I spoke to them, they haven't actually tracked things. They haven't used Google Analytics. They haven't added parameters. So it's so important that from the very beginning, before you spend any money, that you properly tag the ad and you properly work out where it's coming from. Because if you go on Google Analytics and you want to see how many items you sold as a result of that advert, unless you tag it, there's no way of knowing.
Yeah.
And it's not, you can't tag it later.
Yeah.
You have to tag everything before you start.
Yeah.
And it's really, really worth looking into. And we're actually doing a workshop that's more closely looking at that in how many weeks' time? 4 weeks' time? In 4 weeks' time, that's looking at this tagging and looking at like how you track and measure paid social.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. I highly commend it.
Cool. And the last question I've got here really is around sort of like how to reach slightly older audiences.
Yeah.
I think a lot of brands here are looking at like more affluent women. How would you recommend reaching a slightly older affluent female audience online?
It's a good question. It's interesting. I was talking to my son. So I have a 15-year-old son. It's the oldest of my 3 kids. And interestingly enough, so my Instagram experience is completely ad-free. As in, I have never seen an ad on Instagram. And the reason I've never seen an ad on Instagram is, quite frankly, because I'm too old. So I sit outside the parameter of what most brands would advertise to, because I am over 35. So they are not interested. I'm on Instagram, but they're not particularly interested. So I don't fit within their brand. And I've genuinely never seen an ad on Instagram, right? Whereas my son, who's 15, sees ads on Instagram all the time because he's getting targeted by lots of brands. Now, the reason that perhaps doesn't make so much sense is that when it comes to disposable income, I've got considerably more income than my son does when it comes, if you think about it, he's 15, any money he gets from me, and he doesn't actually have a lot of cash. So his income is incredibly small, and yet he's getting targeted with ads. Whereas, I'm not saying, but in relative terms, I think I earn a bit more than my son. So, and yet I don't see any ads. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining necessarily about it. But what it suggests is that actually there's an opportunity, even on Instagram, when you think about sponsored posts, to target older consumers, because they are not going to be seeing a lot of ads because of the way that Instagram is skewed in its focus. Now, my guess is, and I haven't checked this, but my guess is that Snapchat will be exactly the same. There is an older demographic that uses Snapchat, but it will be smaller. And I'm, again, depending on who your market is, I'm not necessarily saying that Snapchat's right for you, but if you go to places where that advertise, not all the advertisers, or you look for audiences that not all the advertisers are looking for, particularly if you're looking for older audiences, then actually social channels may be interesting. Facebook, not so much, because everybody's on Facebook. And in fact, the challenge with Facebook is trying to get young people onto Facebook, because most young people aren't using Facebook. They're using Snapchat and Instagram as their two primaries, and obviously the messaging apps, WhatsApp, etc. So if you're trying to target young people, I would, or even if you're trying to target older people, Facebook is the kind of catch-all. It's the kind of, it doesn't matter who the hell you're trying to target, quite frankly, they can find you an audience. Whereas, particularly if you're starting to think about older users, something like Instagram could be interesting because they are there, but they're not going to be targeted as much by advertising. The other thing I would say is consider, there are so many online publications and magazines, particularly in fashion, where if you can establish a bit of a relationship with the kind of, not necessarily the Grazias and the Vogues, etc., but there's a whole bunch of really credible, kind of fashion online magazines. And I mean, my wife is a makeup artist, so she does collaborations all the time, and she does shoots that end up on, some of them have ended up in Vogue and Harper's, but others, a lot of them end up on online publications. And it's a really great way of reaching an audience and collaborating with, particularly if you're a designer, collaborating with photographers and makeup artists, and doing collaborations together that then you then pitch to an audience, pitch to a publication. It's a great way of actually getting your work, and if it's a great shoot, the photographer will promote it on their social channels, the makeup artist will, the hairstylist will, it's one of those collaborations, and it will get published as well. And so it's a great sort of relatively low-cost way to build awareness and to build an audience about some of the stuff that you're doing. So, just think about non-traditional audiences, and particularly if you're targeting more affluent, then think about perhaps looking for them in non-traditional places, and also think about collaborations.
Cool. Thank you very much.
It's okay.
Brilliant. Are there any questions from the audience before we close?
Hadrian from Urban Hill. So I guess with the changes that have happened to Instagram recently, and engagement seems to be disappearing.
That's because Facebook are doing that thing.
Depending on who you are.
Yeah.
Is it important to grow your follower base? And I'm assuming you can say yes. And so if it is, what's the best way of doing that?
It's a really. Do you know what? It's so again, a lot of these stories. I make myself sound very old, but I remember pitching actually with one of my US colleagues who came over from New York to Unilever a few years ago, and he was the first person to stand in front of Unilever and say, "We're going to do this campaign. It's for Tresemme, it's hair and all that." So clearly I was in the target market. And I remember he was the first person, he stood there and he said, "Listen, we're going to do this campaign on your own website. We suggest that you do this on your own website, Unilever, because if you put it on Facebook, Facebook won't show it to your audience. They're going to close the gates. You won't be able to access your own audience. You're paying them to do it, but then they're going to close the gate." And I remember the global brand director for Tresemme was saying, "Excuse me, you're telling us, every other agency is saying that we should be advertising on Facebook and social channels, and you're saying, build our own platform, do it yourself." And he was going, "How can you be the only person saying that?" And he was like, "I'm saying this because I'm right and everybody else is wrong," right? He was that kind of a guy. And I was sitting there going, honestly, I was like, "Really, dude? You're the first person I'm hearing saying that." But he was right? Because not long after that, Facebook did indeed close the gates. They stopped allowing advertisers to reach their entire audience, and then they made it more and more and more about pay to play. Instagram is doing the same thing, right? It's on the same monetization journey. So whilst I talked about the fact that yes, right now it's a no-brainer for you to use that platform, in time it will get harder and harder and harder for brands to reach their audience because it's owned by Facebook. They know the game, right? So therefore, should you build a follower base? Well, yes, why not, right? Make hay while the sun shines. Absolutely, you should do it. But should you also think about diversifying and how else you're going to do that and building your own audience, and potentially what platform do you need in order to gain your own audience that you can communicate? And dare I say, I was just about to say that, email is still a tremendously successful medium, right? It is the forgotten digital channel. But if you can build a subscriber base, typically you're getting engagement rates of like 27, 30% open rates on email, which is way above you're going to get on digital channels, right? So if you build a subscriber base, everything you do should be trying to capture someone's email address, because if you've got that, you can then retarget them, you can then communicate with them on a newsletter basis, and you have that person. So don't forget about traditional, and I say traditional, channels like email, which are still incredibly effective. They're cost effective as well. And it doesn't matter what Facebook or Instagram or anybody else does, you still got that customer contact. So that would be my answer.
There's a side thing to that. Are there like new platforms that you've noticed, like that are like not Instagram, not Snapchat, anything newer?
Trying to think. I mean, there's new platforms every day. The problem is, at the moment, we're in a bit of a winner-takes-all kind of scenario where there's, the one thing, this piece that I wrote on LinkedIn was actually talking about the new influencers, and I actually think the new influencers are not social media influencers. The new influencers are things like, or in fact, the new influencers aren't even human. So the new influencers are actually Siri, Cortana, Alexa, Amazon's Alexa, the chatbots. Those are the new influencers. And as a very simple case study in that, you look at Amazon Alexa, which is the Amazon Echo. You talk to it and you order it. There was a great video I saw the other day where they did a live demonstration, and they were demonstrating that Amazon is actually incentivizing people to buy from Alexa. So it's cheaper to buy things using Alexa if you say, Alexa, order me new baby wipes. The baby wipes you buy via Alexa are actually cheaper than the ones on Amazon.com, right? So they're trying to move people onto purchasing by voice. But then where it got really interesting is when this guy was doing the demonstration and he said, Alexa, buy me some batteries. I'd like some batteries. And Alexa offered him Amazon batteries. He said, we have the Amazon, would you like to buy? And he says, no, show me something else. The next one was another Amazon battery. And it was like, we have the Amazon, smaller packet, would you like to buy? No, show me something else. That's all I have for you today. Right? Despite the fact that on Amazon.com you can buy Duracell and all the rest of them, Alexa was only giving Amazon's batteries, right? So this piece that I wrote, which is talking about the new wave of influencers and the brand killers, because trust me, those little assistants that we're using, over 40% of voice of people are using Google via voice now. So when you say Google, tell me the way. I mean, how many people, like myself, use Google Maps to get here today, right? You rely on these devices all the time. And it's going to be, when we start talking about driverless cars and all that sort of stuff, it's about, there's a great, Toyota have done this new concept iCar, where they've got essentially like Knight Rider, it's like the kit in Knight Rider. And they show this concept video, and then the dad's getting tired, the kid's in the back, then, we nearly there yet. And then the car takes over, the car's called Yui, and it says, would you like me to take over driving? And he was like, yes, thanks, Yui. And it was like, would you like me to take you to a restaurant so we can have a pit stop? It was like, that would be amazing. It was like, yay for Yui, Yui saves the day, and they drive to a restaurant. Who decides what restaurant it is? Who makes that decision about where you increasingly, so when you start making choices, Microsoft's Cortana, can now listen to a Skype conversation, and then they did a demonstration where they showed Cortana listening to a Skype call where they're saying, I'm going to speak in this conference in Dublin. Straight after, the Microsoft app, Cortana, then says, would you like me to book you a hotel in Dublin on the 19th? Yes. Then would you like me to contact the Western Hotels bot so we can book the hotel? Yes. And then the Western Hotels bot shows up and says, hey, we have these rooms available. Would you like to book this one? And the person says, yes. Now, and so all seamlessly happening. Who decided to contact the Western Hotels bot, right? As opposed to Marriott or anybody else. So my point is, influence is going to change. And our definition of influence, yes, there'll always be the Kendall Jenners, and there's always going to be the Zoellas and the PewDiePies and all that. That's always going to exist. Yeah. But the real play, the power and the money always follow the money. The power and the money are moving now to AI, automation, and these assistants. And when you think about it in the fashion world, you're going to be seeing a whole crop of assistants coming to help you make selections, sunglasses, what to wear, what goes with what, the weather, all those sorts of. So you're seeing a whole slew now of apps that are coming out, AI-powered apps that are there to help you make those decisions. Who they recommend and why they recommend them is going to be the interesting play. Now, how, as a smaller brand, you get into that space, go talk to some startups that are in this space and do some collaborations would be my play. So you're going to see a massive shift, is what I'm saying, in the next 5 to 10 years.
That's my question. How long do you just say?
Yeah, within 5 years. 10 years a stretch. Within the next 5 years, you're going to see a massive shift. Not least because time spent on closed messaging apps, Messenger, WhatsApp, has now overtaken time spent on open social platforms, Instagram, Facebook. So we all obsess about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Snapchat's sort of in the middle. But actually, people are spending more time on messaging apps. And look what Facebook are doing with Messenger, building in all those AI bots that can then help people on their journeys. WhatsApp are going to go in the same direction. If you want to know where it's going, look at China and look at WeChat, which is an entire OS built around, you can bank on WeChat, you can buy clothes, you can pay for stuff. Look at what the Chinese are doing with WeChat and you see the future of messaging. And so that will give you an indication of where we're going. Anyway, I'll better stop now.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
And when you approach an influencer and it's only for a review,
Yeah.
is that technically a hashtag spawn or hashtag ad if it's a review?
That's a very good question. I don't honestly know the answer. If you've just sent them the product and you haven't paid them to review it, I don't think so, because it's a genuine review, right?
Yeah.
So if they're doing a review and you've just sent them the product and they decide to do it, and again, you need to check this, but in my sense, it's no different to a journalist. Like if you send a product to a journalist and the journalist reviews it and gives their opinion, that's not, you don't see a sponsored ad in the newspaper. That's a review. So that's journalistic. If you are paying them in some way or incentivizing them to do so, then that...
And the product is not seen as an incentive.
Well, that's where it gets a bit tricky. And this is where I'd say check the Advertising Standards Authority on it. Because if that review is a hotel or beach experience in Barbados, well, you could say that that's an incentive, and therefore they only wrote about it because you went there. My understanding, and again, big caveats around it, my understanding is a genuine review of just a product does not count as advertising. But even as I say that, I think it might, because I'm thinking about some of the work that we've done. Like we did something with PewDiePie where we got him to we gave him a Nissan, and we said, do whatever you want with it, dude. And he did an incredibly fantastic film with a Nissan. It was our French office actually that did it. But yeah, that was advertising. I mean, he did review it, but that was advertising. So err on the side of caution is what I'd say. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
One more question.
Yeah, what about affiliations and like reward styles and stuff like that for small brand as e-commerce?
And what's the question, sorry?
Affiliation.
Affiliates.
Yeah.
Yeah, affiliate deals can be really good. And again, it's definitely something worth exploring. There are a number of affiliate networks, as you probably know, and again, it's just a question of quality control. So with affiliates, it's just about making sure that you choose the right networks and you're affiliated to the right, because sometimes with affiliates, anybody can be incentivized to put something on their website, for example, or whatever. And sometimes you end up in some pretty spammy areas of the web, and so kind of quite clickbaity, spammy areas. So the only challenge around affiliates is just quality control. But there are good affiliate networks out there, so yeah, that's definitely something you can consider.
Do you have any suggestion of like which one is good, which one is bad? Maybe not bad, which one's good?
I can't.
Reward style?
The best thing to do is get my details. I'll ask my affiliate team, because I honestly can't remember. But we have a team that does nothing else. So if you send me your details, I can give you some recommendations.
Any more questions we get? Thank you so much for coming. I've learned loads.
Well, yeah, thank you. I know it's a Monday morning, and it's not the easiest thing to do, come out on a Monday morning. So hopefully that was useful.
I think you were talking about the Mind FC UK, and I think it would be great if we could